Welcome everybody here on Catching the Korean Wave. We started today at 12:30 with keynote speech with Mark Hill on the left side, right for your side, and Quincy Kim. And Quincy? 1 minute for Quincy. He did a keynote speech talking about the history of Seoul in general in some parts of Korea. We might bring that back on the table shortly for everybody who might miss that panel. Some interesting things about history. But today we talk about planting the seed and musical diversity in Seoul nightlife. And yeah, let's start with introducing yourself. Marcus?
Okay, hi. I'm Marcus Lee. My current name is DJ Lee, but I'm from a club called Faust in Seoul, located in Itaewon, heart of the Seoul. And well, it's my first time attending ADE, and I'm very looking forward to share what we have done and what we are planning to.
Quincy?
Yes, my name is Quincy Kim. I do a lot of shows. Me and my team do a lot of shows in South Korea, including mainstream shows and, of course, the underground scene as well. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be speaking here. It's actually my 5th time at ADE, but it's my first time to be on a panel like this, so it's a great pleasure, yeah.
Jan?
Hi everyone, my name is Jan Cavalier. I'm originally from France and England, and I immigrated to South Korea about 8-9 years ago. Started with like creating a DJ crew / label, which went into a marketing agency where we do bookings as well for brands like GQ. We work with a lot of Nike, a lot of beer brands as well, alcohol brands. And with that money, we opened a club called Soap, and we do bookings every week. We work with Quincy as well on the booking side and on our side as well. And it's an underground venue, kind of open in terms of music. So we range from house to hip hop to Korean R&B to live shows as well. So that's what we do.
Mark?
Hi, my name is Mark. Mark Hugh. I was in charge of whole international business at Club Octagon, and then I moved away from the whole bookings business and started on some of the consulting business with venues in China and also Korea. I'm getting more active in Korea back again, so hopefully, we'll see more of my respected peers' events and also mine.
Quincy, you were earlier on for the keynote speech talking about the history of Seoul. Maybe really shortly you can bring that up and furthermore explain how it all started in Hongdae and the neighborhoods that Seoul is known of.
Yes, it all started early 2000s, I think, maybe late 1990s as well. The underground scene always did exist, and it started off in Hongdae, which is very far away. Well, not that far, but like a half-hour drive from Itaewon, where a lot of the underground scene is popping right now. And also around 40 minutes away from the Gangnam district. But yes, there used to be a lot of clubs that just popped up in the Hongdae area where it all started. And then people gradually got to go to clubs and enjoy themselves. And back then it was, in my personal opinion, it was more about the music than it is right now. But of course, Hongdae has evolved to something different right now, where you don't see that many underground clubs popping up, but it's more for the early clubbers, I guess the youngsters mostly in their late teens or early 20s would be hanging around there. Hongdae itself, it's a district mainly consists, the demographics of the people there are totally random, but it's got one of the best art universities in South Korea. So you see a lot of artsy, hipster / I'm kind of cool type of people hanging around in that neighborhood. But yeah.
Marcus, you know Hongdae really well as well.
No, not so much familiar with the Hongdae. No. By the time by the time when the let's say first generation of underground culture was out in Hongdae, I was not in Korea at all. I was spending my most of the time in 20s in England. So yeah, but I'm aware of the what's the trends and what kind of people like Quincy mentioned. What's going on around in the Hongdae area. I'm very aware of it. But yeah, well, that's what I know about Hongdae.
I meant the clubs in Hongdae right now, what's happening right there. But you started in Itaewon, right? So can you explain why that area has been so interesting for you and how it developed the last year?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, everything. I guess Itaewon is the only new now in Korea that it's very multicultural, and basically was U.S.-based camp we had, but now most of the U.S. camp they camp out to the other area, and then most of let's say from mid 20 to mid 30 people could actually be very accessible to that area than rather than Hongdae, because the Hongdae got a little younger generation than the other places. So, and if you're talking about Gangnam area across the river, then it becomes more posh or more So that people they would like to stand out by themselves with whatever the fashion and their worldview. They come to Itaewon because they feel more free, and whoever been outside of the world, outside of Korea, they come to Itaewon, and that's where you can see very diverse people and the culture you can meet in the Itaewon area, which perfectly suit for underground culture. And the first time that we opened a Faust, the area was actually, we call it Hookah Hill, which was literally, you could actually see the hookers for the U.S. soldiers, not for the Korean residents. But that area was kind of charming with a lot of neon lights, reminding me of kind of like Blade Runner, movie. So that area was kind of like people were saying no go, because like that area, no Koreans doesn't like to walk around that area, but actually, they don't harm you. But we say, okay, come on, this got some charm in it, I mean, if when everyone says no, let's try. And that's how Faust started in that top of the Hookah Hill in the first time.
Jan, you are also based in Itaewon with Soap. Can you reflect on how it changed what Marcus is telling from Itaewon back then and Itaewon today?
Well, the whole scene kind of changed. So what Quincy was mentioning about Hongdae and that the music was actually more real before is because there was a division between the Korean nightclubs and the foreign style clubs. So most of normal people would go to the Korean nightclubs, and it's just 90% tables and 10% dance floors and kind of 15-minute allocated slots to dance, and then you go back to sit. And this was huge at the start of the scene. And then these clubs kind of closed, so they kind of contaminated the underground clubs that were already there, already catering for the music. So what's happening right now is like in areas like Gangnam, you get half the nightclub experience and half the dance floor experience. So you'll have a lot of tables, but people think it's like a table service like in America, but it's kind of very different. It's still got that very Korean table service style.
Mark, talking about Gangnam, you're pretty familiar with the area from previous jobs, bringing Octagon into the DJ Top 100 as best club. Can you reflect on that time when that area was developed?
So some people might say I'm the devil of the whole commercial scene in Korea. I'm sure somebody might also point out. But we had a really, I don't know how to put this. We had a really beautiful mind to actually building Octagon itself, because it was built by one of the first generation Korean DJs, and we wanted to put more, more music-minded programming instead of what Jan just pointed out. So we started with that, and we had the bookings I worked on bookings like James Abila, Marco Bailey, Koyu. So we wanted to put more of the diverse musical genres onto the dance floor. But then what happened was when big room EDM started just coming over to Asia, we just had to, make the business we had to make the business afloat. So some people might say, okay, you sold out. You sold your soul to the devil, but if you want to keep a 1,500 capacity venue alive for the next 2 or 3 years, then you have to do what you have to do. But we still try to keep that underground scene going with our smaller lounge where Yan used to be the resident of. So, but yes, in general, the whole Gangnam scene just transformed into the EDM, big room EDM-based clubs where you have bottle service and all these plastic surgery girls just coming in, showing their boobs and stuff. I'm not really happy about that, but we tried, in a sense, to keep the music scene going. That's my defense. So.
The city is a fast-growing city still, and Quincy, actually, you already are some steps further that you say, okay, everybody's talking about ADE18, and it's great, it's busy everywhere, and it's getting more diverse into music genres, but you now do loads of events at S Factory, which actually is like a cultural center, in a totally other area, right? It's not that far from ADE18, but still pretty, right?
Yeah, just to summarize everything of what Seongsu-dong is about, it's supposed to be an artsy neighborhood. It started out with like cool, but let me rephrase that, because I think we have to understand the real estate pricing of the city itself to understand what the Gangnam clubs are doing and what the Itaewon clubs are doing, and how I want to reach out from these two neighborhoods because of the real estate prices and because everything's so dense in Itaewon, that my team and I thought that why not take this to another neighborhood so that this other neighborhood could be that next cool artsy place. But it's probably the same across the world, but when corporates jump into a certain neighborhood, the coolness and the hipness of the neighborhood itself just dies out in a blink because the real estate prices again jump, obviously, right? So for the Gangnam districts, the clubs in the Gangnam districts, they have to pay an enormous amount of monthly rent. And to keep up with that, they have to sell a certain amount of VIP tables no matter what. And so they rely heavily on that. Whereas Itaewon, you see a lot of clubs just stacked up with each other. There's neighboring clubs. For example, Faust and Soap would be like 50 meters away. It's like a 2-minute walk, right? So for us, for my team to go into Itaewon and open up a new club or do events in Itaewon seemed ridiculous because everybody's doing it, and we want that market to grow in a healthier way. So we decided to go to Seongsu, to this district where nobody was throwing any legitimate shows at all, and we decided to. Well, we're still working on it to develop the neighborhood itself into a cooler, music-driven neighborhood. And yeah, it was Seongsu because the real estate prices are obviously, drastically lower than the Gangnam district and the Itaewon district. And it's got garages and factories nearby. So the noise complaints aren't as extreme as it would be in the Gangnam district or any other district in Seoul. So yes, that's what I've been working on.
Yeah, Marcus, you told me also about the rents are crazy in your area and probably for Yen as well. But what I really like from Vath is that you took pretty big risk by developing Vath as how you did it, especially with design and standing out from all the other, let's say, techno basements or techno cellars, right? Because it's pretty underground to clubs who are doing their techno music stuff in that area. But maybe you can share with the audience here your vision about Faust and how you started it up.
Yeah. Well, first, when I started at Faust, we had, of course, we had a very low budget in our pocket, and the first place that we got was quite affordable rent because the location was the area that no one wanted to touch. And that's how we could actually develop ourselves in a music-wise, and for the design of the room and for the systems and everything, we had to be very humble at the beginning because when you don't have much, something that you don't really need it. So Then after 3 years and 2 years, 2.5, and we felt okay, it's time to move forward. Because we felt there are a lot of demands, and young kids or new generation or newcomers are coming to listen to techno and all this underground music. And then we thought, okay, then the trends in Korea is super fast. It's like, you know, if you just come this year to Korea and the next year, and something must be changed. So meaning every people are very sensitive about fashion, about trends, and then it explains. And then the club shouldn't be always like staying in one place as a same concept. Or I'm talking about designing and also the whole color concepts identity. Because like, you know, McDonald's or whatever, Dunkin' Donuts, you know, they also change their logo, BIs and everything in certain times. That kind of applied to us. Why not we try make this underground techno or this house music bringing up to the surface. Not just always underground doesn't mean that it has to be dirty. It doesn't have to be like Berghain dirty, like, you know, or concrete, whatever. You know, it can be nice and clean. It can be very fresh. You know, that's why we teamed up with a design company and also the German sound company to make it a very distinctive club, make it proper upgrade, not a side upgrade, so that everyone who doesn't know anything about this underground culture or who doesn't haven't heard of any techno can actually come and experience, and they decide whether they like it, then they stay or not, because it's like the, you know, food that you can choose on the streets. So that's how we relocated recently, and then we got like double bigger sizes now. And our vision of our Faust, let's say, because we don't only do the techno, we do house, techno, and also electronica music, but we have like 2 dedicated rooms, but we play 3 different music. One is in the main room called we do, of course, mostly techno with the big events like we had recently Sven and Faki, Chris Levy, Nastia, Elena Lien, all those big names were there, but within our capacity is like less than 300. But they're very willing to experience the Faust, and they've heard a lot about Faust from their friends, because I've counted out that we had 3 years we had 198 artists so far from the abroad. So literally now we're bringing 8 artists in a month, which is every Friday, Saturday. And then actually this hasn't been actually done before, and we are kind of very passionate that we can actually explain or introduce all different artists and all different type of music towards the audience. So that's the room that we do, and the other room we call it Dance Bar, which is basically a bar room with a small DJ booth that we play mostly house or disco, so people can actually come and sit down and socialize, and they can chill from the techno dungeon. Yeah.
Talking about sitting down and socializing, Jan, just recently was the rooftop opened, right? Which is kind of next door.
Yeah, well, it's I don't know if it's of any interest to people that want to get booked or want to book people, because I mean, where we have like a nice venue, rooftop venue, just on top of Faust. So I guess put the bookings at Faust and then come to our rooftop and chill. But we still have some space for like kind of very small indie bands that we could put in the space, or maybe side shows on a Sunday, book them at any venue in Itaewon and then come do a surprise show on the Sunday. It's a very Corona sunset vibe. Everyone's seen the festival, so it's sponsored by Corona. And we have a sound system and barbecue, and it's just a very chill vibe. But then we have Soap, and Soap is just crazy. So
can we say that you both are like the biggest venues in that street, in that area?
In terms of capacity, I would say we are the biggest venues.
For the house music sound? And
I mean, at Soap we play literally everything. So it's kind of representative of the Korean scene. It's very based on trends, and people don't exactly choose, as much as Europe, they don't really choose a certain type of music. We'll have some people that will come to Faust on the Friday, and they'll come to Soap on the Saturday, and they'll also go to like a very commercial bar on the Thursday, and then still come and enjoy different types of music on the Friday and Saturday. That's the type of people that Korean people are, and it's great. People actually come with ears open and enjoy like different types of sounds, and they don't particularly know the lyrics. They'll just listen and get moved by the sonorities and the rhythms, which is quite great. It's just something great.
Surprising to me was that the Koreans are such great dancers. You really see the interaction on the music from the DJ and the reflection on how he is telling a story in the music, and the Koreans.
I've been trying to understand why.
Yeah, you tell me.
Because when you go to Japan, in general, Japanese people are a little bit more immobile, like they don't dance as much. I think probably Marcus could probably tell me why, but I think
we got
also
three Koreans here, so
there's a huge emphasis on music when you're young, because I know that everyone has done like violin lessons or piano lessons, and so maybe that's also, but also maybe the society is a little bit less cold, I would say.
Mark, can you add something to this? Why is Koreans can dance that well?
I see you're directing all these difficult questions towards me. Culturally speaking, I would say we have like we have a term called hung,
Yes.
which is more like I don't know how to put it in English. It's more like excitement, you know, like soulful excitement. So it's in our nature. It's in our nature, and it has been for for generations. It's you go back to like old history, and everyone's going to say, okay, people were writing poetry, lyrics, and then they were, citing it musically, and they were drinking. So this actually goes back way long time ago. So I think this is still in our DNA, and that's why maybe, as Jan pointed out, it might be a little bit different from the Japanese scene. But also, yes, we did have a lot of musical education when we were growing up. And sometimes it might strike chord with something we call han. This is also something very traditional. It's like I don't know how you put it in English. It's how do you put it? It's like you have something restrained inside, and then it's bound with sadness and also like suppression. Yeah, so you have this sort of sadness inside, and then you want something, a channel to actually, let it out. So that's where music comes in. So maybe that's why. I don't know if I put this into the right words. But
there's also the alcohol as well. Koreans can drink more than anyone in the world.
We're definitely
for 10 hours straight.
I was trying to stay away from that.
Without even lying, people look at our stature and say, that's probably a lightweight, But when you get to drink in Korea, the drinking culture is quite extreme. It's like, even for office workers that work from 9 a.m. to, if they have a 9 to 6 job, it's not really a 9 to 6 job. It's like a 9 till 11 or 12 job.
But another thing is that's not extreme, is that I never see people drunk there, really true drunk. So you say we can handle drinks, right? But people getting wasted in any way, maybe it's a topic we can talk about on ADE at least. There's hardly any drugs there in the scene, or at least less than we have seen in other countries. I mean...
Well, there's definitely less drugs, or nearly non-existent, compared to Europe, which makes the club survive better. And like Marcus we are able to like book 10 artists a month, 8 artists a month. It's also that, like when I go to Paris to my friends' parties, like everyone is outside like tripping and no one's at the bar, But I mean, and it's a reality, It also shapes the scene in terms of sound. People won't be driven to experimental sounds as much as they are in Europe. So it's like a give and take, Like, what do you want? Do you want the experimental, crazy crowd, or do you want the crowd that contributes to the scene by actually spending money on what the clubs can get.
And having lots of fun.
Yes.
I mean, people are really having a night out there in Korea, and I didn't see many expats as well. It's a pretty 80% at least Korean crowd, right? And I think it's a big pleasure for DJs and artists to perform for a Korean crowd in Korean venues.
Well, but still, when we have a lot of drinking, I say like alcohol customers, like alcohol dancers and druggy dancers, because as a DJ, when I play in Berlin, like Berghain, and it's a totally different music or the way of mixing or the flow that you put into has to be different. And because of we get a lot of drinking and drunken dancers on the floor, we don't have a curfew at all. We don't have a curfew of running clubs. It's your business, like you do whatever you want, yeah. But people dies before 4 or 5 because they've been drinking so a lot, yeah. So government was clever in that mood. We don't need any curfew because they will die anyway by 5. So why should we bother with those curfew things? So, but in the business wise or in a more cultural or more music wise, like Jan just mentioned, I wish sometimes we have more more controls in the drug. Well-controlled drug, things that actually can more, open up the creativities and also other stuff. And because as an owner of the club, sometimes it's hard because people leave at 5 and you still want to go party. You still want to let the music out, and you still want to present something out more than just at 6 a.m.
But what's weird is that in Gangnam they'll party until 12, right? Noon, right? It's noon. It's
So,
the next day. It's crazy.
I want to know that.
Yeah, so in Gangnam area, it's usually business starts around 10, and then you see a lot of people coming into the clubs around midnight, and then you see a lot of people leaving the venue at around 2 or 3, and then what they do is they actually go to a place called after clubs. I don't know if you are kind of accustomed to the things, but so after clubs, what they do is they start business, they start operating at midnight, and then they go on for almost 12 hours. So even when you finish, so for like people like us, when we finish business, when we close our venues, we can go to these after clubs at 6, 7 in the morning, and then still get wasted until noon. So when you come out of the club and you see broad daylight, and everyone's just wondering why am I here? So that's what Gangnam people have been exploiting. But yeah, and it's totally different from the rave in Europe, where like the after clubs are kind of like everyone's kind of coming down and like chilling, or kind of going up or down, whatever. But in Korea, it's like the tables will still be full at 10 a.m. in certain clubs, and like you still have the table service at 10 a.m. and everyone's having an amazing time on crazy EDM.
We have 15 minutes more left, so I just want to wrap this off. That's a pretty healthy theme here with the music you guys bringing on. For example, like Quincy, you did Charlotte de Witte in S Factory, which is a pretty big venue. At the same time, Marcus, you had Sven Vath. So that says enough that techno is doing pretty well, and it can survive, that you both are bringing in big headliners at the same night. But for the last few minutes we have for this panel, I'd like to get your opinion about, for people who want to be signed to labels in Korea, who want to get booked themselves or through their agency in Korea, and the musical diversity we have besides that techno is a trend right now. Where are we heading to? So Marcus, you run a label, right?
Yeah,
you manage your artists?
Yes, we do have 2 labels. Like one label that I used to run from 2014, was called Armenia, was open for a platform that for local artists and producers, young producers, can actually present themselves towards the Europe market, which no one actually. I mean, there were a few, but they were very limited with the music genres. But I wanted to explore more from house to techno or even minimals. So. We've been releasing 10 EPs so far, but on the other hand, from a Faust, we have an in-house label, only does vinyl, with the compilations with our resident DJs, who are all producers, and also we do have upcoming 2 vinyls with 3 vinyls, one with a big artist remix version. So we're working very closely with artists who has been to Faust, and we've been trying to send out our local artists towards the Euro market, because we were kind of like on treasure area, which mean many people knew about a Japanese producer, Japanese DJs, but no one actually has been found out who's in Korea, who can do what, So we try to push our DJs or local artists towards Europe and towards many Asia. So they've been playing Trezor, Grace Mueller, About Blank, Berkheim, and now in most of China now and Singapore. So yeah, we're working out to, because for them it's more important. It's very healthy to our DJs that they go out and experience what's going on outside of the Korea. Then they, feel something, inspired by something. They come back and they can grow up. Yeah.
Quincy, you actually also play a big role as founder of Mixmag Korea for, as you say, bedroom DJs, bringing them hope, right?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we have to be on the same point in understanding that Korea is a country that's run by corporates, by the major conglomerates. And the entertainment companies, the major ones, like mentioned, like JYP, SM Entertainment, YG Entertainment, they benchmarked off of the same business model. It's a one-stop shop, monopolize everything and control everything. Whereas I don't think it's healthy for the diversity of music's sake to reach a certain country or a certain culture and be controlled by certain corporates, so that the audience is automatically brainwashed that this is the cool stuff or this is the trendy stuff. And from my experience in living in Korea for over 13 years straight now, it's literally impossible to go against the corporates because of the funding that they have, et cetera, et cetera. But me and my team, we decided to bring in Mixmag Korea so that we could furthermore educate people and inform people that there is hope for the bedroom producers that don't produce the multi-drop having K-pop type of production or whatnot. That you could be a bedroom producer and you can still succeed. And please try to read it in your own language as well, because we do 100% Korean on Mixmag Korea. We're doing this for the people that don't speak English, because most of the time, if you're speaking fluent English in South Korea, you're working for one of these corporates at the end of the day. So we decided to bring in Mixmag Korea, and I mean, we launched with artists such as Gesafestein. It's a very hard artist to book or promote, and we were lucky enough to have him on board, and we did a great job. We had all these Gangnam EDM clubs calling us up and saying, oh, we're going to rent out our venue for free for you guys, la 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 la. But we just wanted to make a statement that we're not corporate driven, or we're not money driven in that sense, where bottles of champagnes are being popped, constantly, because it is about having drinks and having fun, but at the end of the day, it's about spreading more love with music. And that's what we've been trying to do with Mixmag Korea, try to inject more hope into not only bedroom producers, but for the upcoming generation, so that they understand that their path has some kind of hope. Of course, with Marcus doing his label business, there might be not a lot of people that know about this label being in South Korea in the first place, because corporates are controlling the label business just worldwide. So we don't have boutique labels such as Marcus's. And Mixmag Korea would further promote such labels so that these bedroom producers actually have a way to go. And through this, I hope for the next upcoming generation that they'll have a much easier way to distribute their music and let it known worldwide, because we're a country that heavily relies on trade. Even if you're successful in South Korea, it does not mean that you're going to be successful overseas. But if you're successful overseas, it's most likely you're going to be successful in Korea. I mean, that's how we were bred. We were built because of the lack of population we have. For an inner economy to solely survive on its own, you need more than 70 million people in the country. Japan has 77 million. China has billions. Korea has 52 million. So it was obvious that we had to rely on learning a second or third language and go abroad or bring stuff in from abroad. And so this export-import of culture even relied heavily on corporates, whereas we're kind of behaving towards the other end, saying, yeah, corporates are doing a fine job, but there are some niche markets where independent companies such as Marcus's and, of course, Soap and all these clubs are doing a great job, because you can take advantage of having control of a small boutique rather than having a big corporate, having dozen divisions and not being in control at all. So, yeah.
But you guys all are doing it yourself. Jan, just like Marcus, now playing Berlin. And Marcus, you play at Magazijn in Den Haag this weekend. Jan, you play for Clear. But you also bring your resident Korean DJ, right?
Yeah, so we've kind of have a special partnership with Amsterdam, I guess. We've been bringing everyone from the Clear label. So I don't know if you guys are familiar, but Folkrate, Jael, Jengi, One Tigger. So we're kind of trying to establish a relationship where we're gonna be bringing artists from Korea to Amsterdam and back and forth, and have like a moral contract, which is like, let's showcase your music here and showcase Korea in Amsterdam. And there's also, like, you were talking about the big corporate music, and I feel like there's some sort of middle ground that's starting with kind of the Korean R&B scene, where the guys are semi-underground but still kind of latching onto the big corporates. And I feel like there's going to be a time where a real independent label will be created, and it's just a matter of years, I think. Maybe it's a month, I don't know.
Mark, you as a booker for a platform, maybe you can explain to the people what kind of diversity you want to put in there as well, right? Which will make the market a little bit more broader on the festival side and the crowd that attracts it.
So I think I have to explain what Platform Festival is first. Its name itself actually came from that we wanted to, well, BEPC, the hosts, they wanted to create a platform where some of these non-EDM, big room EDM genres DJs could actually perform, and we can strike chord with these die-hard fans of, diverse genres. So that's what they wanted to do. And when they asked me to book these artists, I told them, look, this isn't going to work. I mean, you're obviously going to lose a lot of money, but they were still, wishing to do it. And the reason behind that was because we saw this sort of monotonous musical scene in Korea, and we wanted to, of course, give a lot more diversity into the scene. As Marcus, Quincy, as Jan, they all explained, we see a lot of this movement coming up in Korea right now. And as a corporate, we can actually promote this a lot better than 200, 300 capacity venues. Of course, we're not going to sell as much tickets as big EDM festivals, but still, you have to start somewhere. And as a platform, you can actually launch this into a bigger, more, a bigger event in the future, where you can see more, big techno events like Awakenings, let's say, or
Always Awakenings.
Or other trance events, other house events. So we wanted to do that, and that's why this is started. But still, at the end of the day, I would say we still owe it to these guys who've been doing this from day one. And we have to start we have to continue this bond. We have to work together in the scene so that we can see this movement actually grow into full scale.
We got 5 minutes left for questions, but I want to go to Jan for a last quote about K-pop. The next panel and our final panel today is about K-pop from Korea, starting in 15 minutes from now. Being a former resident for Octagon in Gangnam, there was a thing with K-pop there. Can you tell me shortly, Jan?
Yeah, I remember, because before there was a real divide between the electronic music scene and K-pop, where I remember I was forbidden to play any K-pop because, yeah, when I was DJing on the main stage, it was forbidden because they wanted to really separate themselves from K-pop. And but now, I mean, Korean pop, Korean R&B, Korean music, now it's not just K-pop. There's so many different indie bands, there's so many jazz bands, R&B artists that are producing their own music. So now I think the gap is kind of closing, and we have every month, twice a month, three times a month, we have artists that are related to the K-pop scene. But I think you can't really say Korea is K-pop now. It's like it's completely been destroyed, and pop music is pop music like it is in the US, but you have a great underground independent music also, semi-independent music also being released. So that's it.
So for anybody interested in K-pop and producers who are making music for the big K-pop bands, please stay for the next panel. If there's any question from the audience, please come here. Then you can take my mic so everybody can hear it well. We'll be live streaming this on Mixmag in Korea and on Amsterdam Dance Event live report. So are there any questions from the audience for these gentlemen? Anybody who wants to ask a question and staying in their seat, please ask the question. Okay, then we have 5 minutes left, guys. So if we have some topics you want to put on the table.
Well, I mean, personally, I think music business education is really needed in South Korea. Again, you know, like making tracks, producers. We have a lot of talented folks in that end. They don't know how to produce a physical album. Only the major corporate agencies, entertainment companies actually know this to an extent of expertise, right? So I think, you know, there should be more people that have majored in business that jump into the music scene so that we could furthermore export Korean talents abroad, K-pop and underground and, you know, electronic music in general. For this to happen, we need more experts to join the family or try to help this scene grow in a healthier way rather than constantly relying on these corporates or the Western world. Or the Western world should penetrate the Korean market, the experts, in actually building a physical album for these talented producers or whatnot for the scene to grow furthermore, because Korea is definitely a hub, a culture hub, an economic hub as well in Asia. I mean, we were mentioning things about dancing, you know, how the culture is kind of different. Yes, I mean, for Japanese people, I guess sticking to the rule is how they were bred. They grew up that way. Whereas Korean folks, it was all about bending the rules and absorbing stuff and spitting it out, right? And for China, I guess it's quite difficult to do that because it's, you know, the population and you know, the behavior of humans just behaving in general. But for Koreans to be able to dance that much and everything shows a lot of potential that, you know, this country has a lot of vibes, good energy in them, but they're just not guided the right direction at the moment because it's all controlled by the conglomerates and everything. But I see a better, brighter future. And, you know, slowly and gradually after being on a panel like this, I hope, you know, the Western world gets, you know, to know about the Korean scene.
Yeah, the fact is that you guys are here. So it's the first time. It's hosted by BEPC. So really grateful for that. And probably you guys already are thinking about ideas to next year's ADE. How does it reflect for you guys to see opportunities with Amsterdam Dance Event and the people you meet here to bring that back to Korea with education and skills experts?
Can you say that again? So how do we What did we learn from this?
No, I mean, do you already have ideas? Did you say now we are all here and presenting Korea? What could be the next steps for us to help it through the network you have in these 5 days and 5 nights?
Well, for us, like I mentioned earlier, it's like about doing exchanges between labels and venues as well, for sure. And the Amsterdam sound works really well. I mean, on the Bailey funk scene and the beat scene, it works really well. I think they also had in hardstyle with the World DJ Festival some sort of exchange. So that's a totally different scene, but it seems like exchanges are happening and they're going to happen even more, I think.
Maybe one thing for Quincy, your good friend Civica will perform. She's now doing rehearsals. Talking about talent from Korea, right? Can you tell something shortly about her and how she's doing right now outside of Korea?
I mean, Peggy Goo, Yeji, all these artists are successful. And one of the key elements is you can speak English. They can all speak fluent English, right? I think it's a given almost. And Civica is also one of those people that speaks very fluent English. But I see that gradually changing. Of course, you know, some members of some K-pop stars or whatnot would not be able to speak English. But Civica, yes. I mean, she's one of those girls that's not really corporate driven between the entertainment agencies. She's got a great art director. She's got great producers working with her. She's got a great manager that's helping her out in all aspects. And surprisingly for me, she's the only craziest person that tries all these new moves that usually Koreans didn't have the courage of doing. But this type of movement will help out the upcoming generation as well. And yes, I mean, for her to be on the spotlight in certain other countries, it's a great thing for her and for Korea as well, because she's not, you can't say that she's K-pop at all. I can't even set a genre for her, you know, but, you know, having the courage to do that is, you know, by all means, a lot of props. So
anyone who wants to see Civica tonight, you know what time she's on? Is 8 or 7:30?
She's at 8 o'clock, yeah.
Okay.
But she's going to be dropping by here at 6 o'clock.
All right,
well,
so
just to say hello and everything. So if you guys
after the K-pop panel, we have like a possibility to do some networkings in the Balis, or anybody who want to meet up. Also with these guys can do it after the panel. But we have a 15 minutes break right now, and then the final panel. But I'd like to thank you guys, Marcus L. from Faust, Quincy Kim, Mixmec Korea, Jan from Soap, and Mark Yu, who's also organizing this panel together. And thank you for your time, and enjoy ADE.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.